Unaware the wife he ignored was about to buy his company, husband poured dirty water on her at the business dinner. As his boss laughed, what she did next ruined his career. He didn't just embarrass her. He stood up in front of his co-workers, his boss, and his own mistress, and dumped a cloudy jug of leftover table water over his wife's dress like she was a joke. That night, in an upscale restaurant reserved for a corporate dinner, Emma Harper sat quietly at the long table, trying to support her husband. Daniel Harper, a proud mid-level manager desperate to impress, was busy showing off. His boss, Mr. Lawson, already half drunk, kept pushing him to lighten the mood. Someone laughed and asked, "Does your wife ever stand up to you, Daniel?" Daniel's pride flared. He grabbed the cloudy jug of melted ice, lemon slices, and herbs, glanced at his assistant Chloe, the same woman he'd been calling late at night, and smirked. "She can't even handle this." Splash! The cold, dirty water soaked Emma from shoulder to lap. The whole table exploded in laughter. Mr. Lawson slapped the table. Chloe smirked. A few phones quietly came up. Eyes stared. Emma didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply stood up, water dripping to the floor, and looked at her husband like she was seeing him for the last time. "Thank you," she said quietly. This clarified everything. They thought she would leave in shame and disappear. What none of them knew was this. The woman they just mocked had been quietly buying shares of the very company they worked for, through a maze of hidden companies legally tied to her maiden name. Behind the polite smile and the soaked dress stood the true majority owner of Baxter Tech, and soon the man who poured dirty water on her to impress his boss would walk into a boardroom and realize he'd just handed his entire career to the wife he ignored. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Emma's voice be drowned out by their laughter again. When you click that button, you stand with every person who was humiliated, underestimated, and still rose higher than anyone expected. Please subscribe now, and in the comments, tell me where you're watching from. The glow of the laptop screen lit Emma Harper's face like a quiet storm waiting to break. It was almost midnight, but she sat upright in her home office, fingers frozen above the keyboard, eyes fixed on the long list of unread messages from her husband, Daniel. 47 unread messages, most of them from the last 3 days. Excuses, half-hearted apologies, sudden bursts of fake affection that always came after he crossed a line. He wanted to talk about last night. He wanted to explain. He wanted another chance. Emma didn't open a single one. She selected them all and hit delete. This was not a dramatic gesture. It was a practiced motion, something she had done many nights before when Daniel turned cruel, then tried to patch it with words instead of change. But tonight felt different. Tonight she felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not confusion, only clarity. Emma Harper, 34 years old, wife of Daniel Harper and founder of one of the most successful eco-care brands in the country, looked around her office. Papers were spread across the desk, early sketches of product labels from her first brand, financial reports with numbers high enough to make anyone blink, and a laptop open to a dashboard labeled Harper Strategic Holdings. It wasn't the name anyone at Baxter Tech saw in public reports. On paper, the company was controlled by layers of funds and trusts. But here, in this private dashboard, it held the name she chose for herself after she got married. Only 2 people besides her knew that she was the real owner: her lawyer, Mr. Collins, and her financial advisor, Michael Grant. Certainly not Daniel. Daniel Harper, also 34, was a mid-level manager at Baxter Tech. Proud, charming, and always trying to climb higher. He liked to appear powerful. He liked to act like the decision maker. He liked being seen as the strong one in the marriage. He had no idea the woman he overlooked every day was the reason he could afford that image. Emma leaned back in her chair, letting the quiet room settle around her. Her story didn't begin with power. It began with exhaustion. 10 years earlier, a much younger Emma stood in a tiny rented storage space that smelled like melted wax and lavender oil. She was 24, working late into the night, packing handmade candles and skincare jars for her small business, Emel Naturals. Money was tight. Her hands were cracked from mixing batches. She slept 4 hours a night. She didn't tell anyone how hard those nights were. Not even her parents knew the full story. But she kept going because she believed in the products she made and she believed in herself. As the orders slowly grew, she taught herself branding, marketing, and logistics. She learned to register trademarks, negotiate prices, and talk to suppliers who barely took her seriously. When her brand suddenly went viral online for its clean ingredients, everything changed. Orders exploded. Blogs wrote about her. Influencers mentioned her without being paid a cent. Then the emails came. Investors, distributors, a private equity firm with an offer she never imagined possible. When that firm finally bought ML Naturals, she agreed, but only under one careful condition that Mr. Collins helped her add. Her remaining revenue streams and profit shares would be funneled into a network of blind trusts with her birth name, Emma Lane, quietly listed as the ultimate owner. That decision became the seed of something bigger. It became Harper Strategic Holdings, the quiet empire behind her calm face. Daniel never asked where the money came from. Emma told him she had sold a small online shop before they met, and that the rest of the money was locked away in long-term investments. He never pushed for details. He never questioned how that small shop paid for their house, his early job losses, and his growing taste for expensive suits. He didn't wonder because he didn't look. Emma met Daniel at a volunteer event when she was 27. He was charming, warm, and funny. He liked her smile, her softness, her simplicity. Emma wore jeans and a plain t-shirt that day, her hair in a loose ponytail. She never mentioned ML Naturals or the sale. She didn't want to lead with success. She wanted someone who loved her heart first, and Daniel did, at least at the beginning. They married 2 years later. In those early days, Daniel was attentive, grateful, affectionate. He bragged about how lucky he was. He said he didn't care how much she made, as long as they were together. Emma believed she had found a true partner. She believed he saw her. She believed he cared. But ambition changed him, or maybe it revealed him. In recent years, Daniel grew distant. He praised his coworkers more than his wife. He cut Emma off in conversations. He forgot important dates. He stayed out late and brushed off questions. When Baxter Tech hired him, he made the job his whole identity. He cared more about his boss's approval than Emma's feelings. He treated Emma's calm nature like weakness. He didn't see the discipline behind her silence. He didn't see the woman he married. Emma was not weak. She was waiting. She turned back to her laptop and opened a folder labeled Baxter Tech Investments. Dozens of transactions filled the screen. Small purchases over several years through different funds and entities Mr. Collins had set up. Together, they now controlled just under 48% of Baxter Tech. One final agreed-upon block of shares, already negotiated, waiting only for her signal, would make her the majority owner. A cold, steady breath escaped her lips. Her phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Collins, timed exactly when he said it would come. Collins. Acquisition timeline moved up. Our side can complete the final purchase within days. Are you ready to confirm? Emma stared at the message, her pulse slow and steady. Ready? She had been ready for years. She just hadn't been sure why she would use that power. Tonight, something inside her shifted. Something powerful. Something final. She typed, "Yes, proceed as planned." As she hit send, a quiet thought crossed her mind. A thought that would lead directly into the breaking point waiting in the next scene. Before these shares are final, Daniel is going to show me exactly who he really is. The shouting started the very next evening, before Emma even reached the living room. Daniel's voice thundered through the house, sharp, irritated, impatient. How many times do I have to say it? Don't rearrange my files. He wasn't yelling at Emma. He was yelling at his laptop, at an email that didn't load the way he wanted, at a presentation Chloe had sent late. But the sound hit Emma like a slap all the same. The calm of the house cracked open. Emma froze in the hallway, watching him from a distance. Daniel Harper, her husband, 34, mid-level manager at Baxter Tech, stood in the center of the room, tie half loosened, hair messy, eyes burning with stress. He looked nothing like the warm, caring man who once brought her flowers and whispered dreams about their future. Now his ambition had grown taller than his empathy. He climbed it like a ladder, step by step, leaving Emma behind. He clicked angrily, muttering about deadlines and incompetent coworkers. A message from his boss flashed on the screen, demanding a revised report before morning. When he finally noticed Emma, he didn't soften. "What?" he snapped. "Why are you staring?" The intensity of his voice shattered the moment. Then just as quickly, he exhaled, dropped his shoulders, and turned back to the laptop like nothing had happened. The switch in his behavior was sharp and jarring. This was the new Daniel. The night settled and the tension slowly quieted. Emma walked past him and into the kitchen, each step heavy with reflection. She remembered when Daniel used to rush home, eager to tell her stories about his day. Now he didn't even look up when she entered a room. He ignored her texts. He canceled dinners they planned weeks ahead. He talked over her whenever she tried to share something important. And worst of all, he acted irritated when she had ideas, like her thoughts were interruptions. She watched him from the doorway, wondering when the slow fading began. 2 years into their marriage, they attended a small gathering at a friend's house. Emma remembered laughing as she talked with Daniel and his coworkers. When she tried to mention one of Daniel's clients, she mispronounced the name slightly. Daniel's reaction burned in her memory. He grabbed her arm and pulled her aside, his smile still fixed for everyone else. "Do you have any idea how stupid that made me look?" he hissed, voice low and sharp. His face was red, eyes hard. Emma had never seen him like that before. He apologized later. Flowers, dinner, promises. But a seed was planted in her heart that night. A quiet seed of doubt. She should have listened to it. Back in the present, Daniel shut his laptop with a loud snap and stood to stretch. "I'm heading outside to take a call," he said, grabbing his phone. Emma nodded, pretending not to care. But she did. A lot. She watched him through the side window as he stepped onto the porch. He checked over his shoulder, making sure he couldn't see her, then raised the phone to his ear. His voice softened, softer than she had heard in months. "Hey, Chloe, I miss you too." The name hit Emma like cold steel. Chloe. She had heard it before, mentioned at dinner as, "My assistant, she's very efficient." Always in a work context, always casual. Emma had never thought much of it. Until now. Chloe. A woman he whispered to, the one who made him gentle again, but not with his wife. Emma didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She didn't storm outside demanding answers. She simply turned away. Inside her chest, something quiet snapped, not with noise, but with clarity. She saw Daniel clearly now, his ambition, his cruelty, his new habits, his wandering affection, and she saw herself clearly too. She wasn't weak for staying quiet. She wasn't scared of confrontation. She wasn't confused. She was calculating. Her silence wasn't surrender. It was preparation. Daniel came back into the house 20 minutes later, humming lightly, as if whispering to another woman was the most normal thing in the world. He walked past Emma without a glance, smelling faintly of the cologne he only wore for corporate dinners or important meetings. Emma went upstairs. She sat at her desk, breathing slow and controlled. Then she opened her laptop. The screen lit up the room. Harper's Strategic Holdings, her secret empire, her quiet power, her future weapon. The dashboard glowed brightly, numbers shifting across the screen like a storm forming in digital silence. Emma stared at it, her fingers steady, her heartbeat calm. Everything inside her settled into place. Tonight, Daniel's whisper wasn't just betrayal. It was the spark that would set everything in motion. Soon, Emma wouldn't just be hurt by his secrets. She would use her own. The printer jammed with a loud crack, spitting papers across Emma's desk like a small explosion in an otherwise quiet room. She jumped, heart racing, grabbing the documents before they scattered to the floor. Financial files, share purchase agreements, hidden account summaries, all tied to one truth. Emma Harper was far more powerful than anyone believed. She stood still, breathing hard, the intensity of the moment settling over her like a weight. For a second, it felt as if the walls themselves were whispering the secret she had carried for years. She gathered the papers, her hands steadying, and the room fell back into silence. Emma sat down, allowing her thoughts to slow. The late-night glow of the desk lamp softened the edges of her memories. She touched the stack of documents, then closed her eyes. Her story didn't begin with wealth. It began with fear. When she was 19, she lived in a small shared apartment. The rent was always late. Her family had no savings. She worked 2 jobs, day shift at a bakery, night shift at a diner. But she refused to stay trapped in struggle. She began researching natural ingredients, mixing oils and wax in her kitchen late at night. Her roommates teased her for the smell, waving their hands dramatically. She laughed with them, but inside she held on to the idea. That tiny side project became Amel Naturals, the brand that would one day change her life. Emma could still see herself at 22, sitting on the floor surrounded by boxes, labeling jars until her fingers ached. She remembered shipping orders out of borrowed storage space and sleeping on a folding cot in that same room when she was too tired to go home. The memory tightened her chest. At 26, everything shifted. A private equity firm approached her with a life-changing offer. 8 figures. She was scared to sign at first. It felt unreal. So she called a lawyer recommended by a friend. That was the first time she met Mr. Collins. Calm, sharp-eyed, in his 50s, he walked her through every line of the contract. He explained what control she would keep and what she would lose. He never talked down to her. In that small office, surrounded by legal documents she barely understood, she made her first serious strategic decision. She agreed to the sale only after negotiating one critical detail. Her continuing profit shares would flow into a structure of blind trusts and holding companies created under her birth name, Emma Lane, so that nothing would be tied publicly to whatever name she might carry in the future. That was the moment Harper Strategic Holdings was born, not as a public brand, but as the private, central account tying all those entities together behind the scenes. Later, when she married and changed her name to Emma Harper, the internal label on her laptop changed. The legal ownership did not. Mr. Collins once told her, "Your husband should know your real net worth." Emma's reply still echoed in her mind. He doesn't notice the little things. Why would he see the big things? And she had been right. Daniel never questioned anything. Even when she covered their bills, even when her card never declined, even when she paid the down payment on their home with her savings, he never asked where her savings came from. He only enjoyed the benefits. Present day. Emma opened her laptop, the glow revealing the sharp numbers on her screen. She clicked through several holding entities, shell funds, investment arms, and allied firms Mr. Collins and Michael had helped her set up. Each account held Baxter Tech shares. Each account moved quietly. None were directly tied to Emma Harper in any public way. Years ago, she had chosen Baxter Tech as one of many long-term investments. At the time, Daniel didn't even work there. The company had strong growth and a product line that matched her belief in innovation. Later, when Daniel joined the company, she could have told him she was a significant investor. She watched him complain about management, talk about idiot shareholders, and laugh about how no one important ever paid attention to middle managers. So she kept her silence. Now, her firm controlled 47.8% of Baxter Tech. Only one more strategic purchase, already negotiated with a retiring investor, would tip the balance. She felt a quiet strength rise within her. For the first time in years, her heartbeat felt steady, clear, focused. She wasn't just surviving this marriage anymore. She was taking control of its ending. Her computer chimed with an incoming video call. She straightened her posture and clicked accept. Michael Grant, her financial advisor in his early 40s, polite, reliable, and extremely skilled at managing complex portfolios, appeared on the screen. "Evening. Emma," he said warmly, "I have the update you requested." Emma nodded. "Tell me." Michael pulled up a chart behind him. "We're at 47.8% ownership now. The last block of shares is ready for purchase. Once we execute, you'll pass 51%. He paused, letting the words settle. "One final approval from you is all we need." Emma didn't blink. She didn't breathe. This was the moment she had been preparing for, without knowing exactly when she would use it. Michael waited. "Shall we proceed?" he asked. Emma's answer came in a whisper, but it carried the weight of years. "Do it." As the call ended, Emma leaned back, her heart steady, her eyes sharp. She knew what came next. Daniel was about to invite her to a place where he thought he held all the power, without knowing she already owned the ground he stood on. The front door slammed so hard the walls shook. It was the following evening. Emma startled in the middle of sorting documents on her desk. Daniel's heavy footsteps stormed down the hallway like a warning before he even appeared. His voice came next, sharp, commanding. Emma, get dressed. Something important came up. The intensity of his tone sliced through the quiet house. He didn't ask. He instructed, like she was an item on his to-do list. Emma stepped out of her office and saw him standing in the doorway. Tie crooked, suit half-buttoned, expression tense. His eyes scanned her comfortable clothes and he frowned. Wear something elegant, he said. We're going to a corporate dinner tonight. My boss wants to see, well, us. There it was, that slight hesitation before us. Emma felt the truth behind it. He didn't really want her there. He wanted what she represented, a wife who made him look stable, a wife who made him look respectable, a wife who knew when to smile and when to stay quiet. She nodded calmly. I'll get ready. This was the first time in months Daniel had invited her to any work event. That alone sent a sharp tension through her chest, because sudden invitations from a neglectful person rarely come from care. They come from strategy. While she changed, Daniel paced downstairs. Through the vent above her closet, she could hear the nervous rhythm of his steps. He was rehearsing lines under his breath, something about possible promotion, impressing Lawson, showing we're solid at home. Emma came down wearing a simple, elegant black dress. Daniel glanced up, and for a moment, shock flickered across his face, almost as if he had forgotten how beautiful she could look when she chose to be seen. Then the moment passed. Good, he said. Just don't talk too much. Lawson likes things simple. The sting was quiet but sharp. On the drive, Daniel kept adjusting his tie, gripping the steering wheel tightly. He opened his phone repeatedly, angling the screen slightly away from her. But not enough. A message flashed across the top. Chloe, see you after. Emma didn't react outwardly. She only blinked once. The words explained everything he hadn't said. The dinner wasn't just about work. It was about image, her image in front. Chloe in the background. Under the cover of her purse, she raised her own phone and took a silent screenshot of the notification. No anger, no panic, just evidence. Daniel never noticed. As they approached the venue, a large, reserved restaurant attached to a hotel, Daniel's breathing softened. His nervous tension shifted into pride. He straightened his jacket, checked his reflection in the window, and walked faster as they neared the entrance. He was excited to impress someone who wasn't his wife. Emma walked beside him quietly, observing everything. His exaggerated confidence, his sudden politeness to the restaurant staff, his loud laugh as he greeted coworkers near the entrance. Everything about him tonight felt staged. Inside, the dinner was already underway. A long table filled Daniel's department. Laughter, drinks, forced smiles. The atmosphere buzzed with people trying to impress each other more than they actually enjoyed being there. Daniel guided Emma to an empty seat near the center. Stay close, he murmured. It sounded less like affection and more like a rule. Moments later, the boss arrived. Mr. Lawson, a tall man in his late 50s, with slicked-back hair and a sharp jawline, walked over with a drink already in hand. He was the kind of man who spoke just loud enough that others turned to listen, even when he wasn't saying anything important. His role as director of operations made him powerful and ruthless. His eyes scanned Emma like she was a resume he hadn't approved. Ah, he said slowly, raising one eyebrow. So this is the wife. The tone, the look, the judgment. It was clear he hadn't expected her, and maybe hadn't wanted her there either. Daniel let out a stiff laugh, unsure of how to respond. Emma simply held Mr. Lawson's gaze, calm and unreadable. Something about her composure made his eyes narrow, just slightly. He couldn't place what bothered him, the steady eye contact, the quiet confidence, or the feeling that she understood more than she was saying. But he dismissed it. He was used to wives sitting quietly at company events and fading into the background. Emma folded her hands in her lap and gave a gentle, polite smile. Inside her mind, a storm was forming, but her face stayed perfectly composed. Daniel leaned toward her and whispered, "Just follow my lead tonight." He had no idea that very soon he would lose the right to lead anything at all. The argument didn't start with a fight. It started with small jabs and lazy jokes that grew meaner as the alcohol flowed. The long dinner table buzzed with conversation, the clink of glasses, and the low hum of corporate laughter. Plates of food came and went. Bottles of wine emptied faster than they should have. Mr. Lawson kept ordering more. Relax, he boomed. Big week, big drinks. Daniel laughed louder than necessary each time, leaning into the performance. The more Lawson praised him, the more Daniel showed off. Emma sat quietly, hands folded, watching the scene unfold. The room smelled of roasted meat, perfume, and alcohol, all mixing with the slow stench of disrespect. 2 seats away, Chloe, Daniel's assistant, watched everything with a sly smile. She was in her late 20s, confident, ambitious, and dressed a little too boldly for a corporate dinner. Her eyes lingered on Daniel in ways a wife should never have to see. Emma noticed every detail, but she made no move. Her silence tonight was not weakness. It was strategy. At one point, someone from Daniel's team raised a glass and said loudly, "To Daniel, the only guy who can talk Lawson into anything." Laughter followed. Daniel puffed his chest. He stood up, swaying slightly, enjoying the moment like a man addicted to approval. "Emma's the real tough one," he declared, waving his glass. "She can handle anything. Right, honey?" Several faces turned toward Emma. Some looked curious, some pitying, some just drunk. Emma answered softly, "Daniel, let's just eat. You've had enough." Someone down the table cut her off with a mocking tone. "Does your wife ever stand up to you, Daniel? Or does she follow orders like a puppy?" The table erupted in laughter. Mr. Lawson leaned back, watching closely, clearly entertained. His boozy grin said he enjoyed seeing how far Daniel would go. Daniel's face changed. Something prideful and ugly twisted inside him. Instead of defending his wife, he joined the laughter. He looked around for something, anything to impress the room, to prove he was in control of everything, including her. His eyes landed on a jug at the center of the table. It was a cloudy glass pitcher filled with what had once been table water. Melted ice, squeezed lemon slices, floating mint leaves, crumbs from the breadbasket. The staff had left it there, intending to clear it later. Now it looked like dirty water. Daniel grabbed it. The room held its breath. Emma knew what was coming a second before it happened. She could have reached out. She could have said his name sharply. She could have stood up. She didn't. She wanted to see, without question, who he had become in front of people he wanted to impress. Daniel lifted the jug with a smirk, playing to his audience. "She can't even handle this," he said. Then he tipped it. Splash. The cold, murky water poured over Emma's dress, soaking the fabric, dripping onto her shoes, pooling beneath her chair. Lemon slices and mint leaves slid down the black material like stains that refused to disappear. The room exploded with laughter. Mr. Lawson slapped the table, roaring. Chloe covered her mouth, not to hide shock, but to hide a satisfied smile. Someone's phone came up. Camera pointed in Emma's direction. Another person turned away, uncomfortable but too afraid to speak up in front of the boss. No one stopped it. No one said, "That's enough." Emma didn't flinch. She didn't gasp. She didn't look away. She sat perfectly still. For a moment, time slowed. The sound of the room faded, and a memory rose from deep inside her. She remembered a day years ago when they first started dating. They had volunteered to paint an old community building together. Emma accidentally spilled blue paint all over her arms and part of her shirt. Daniel had laughed gently back then. Soft, playful, kind. "Come on, Picasso," he had said, guiding her to the outdoor sink. He helped her wash the paint off, holding her hands carefully, joking about her artistic disaster. He had been tender. He had been patient. He had been loving. Where did that man go? When did he become someone who humiliated her for applause? The memory faded, swallowed by the present, by dirty water dripping from her fingertips. Emma slowly stood. The laughter quieted. People exchanged confused looks. Even Daniel blinked, unsure of what reaction he wanted from her. Emma looked at him, not with anger, but with a calm, icy clarity that made his drunken confidence falter. Then she did something that silenced the entire table. She smiled, a small, soft, unsettling smile. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was steady, quiet, controlled. This clarified everything. The words hung in the air, heavier than any shout. She picked up her purse, lifted her chin, and walked toward the exit with steady steps, dignity wrapped around her like a shield. Daniel watched her go, jaw slightly open, the alcohol in his system not strong enough to numb the unease creeping into his chest. Mr. Lawson raised an eyebrow, amused but also faintly annoyed that his entertainment had ended. Chloe smirked, thinking she had finally won. But Emma wasn't running. She wasn't breaking. She was deciding. Tonight became the moment everything inside her shifted from patience to action. And no one at that table, not even Daniel, understood what her calm meant. Not yet. As Emma stepped outside into the cool night air, one thought settled in her chest. The next thing I remove won't be water. It will be my ring. The restroom door slammed behind Emma so hard that the mirror rattled. She didn't mean to hit it that forcefully, but the shock of the moment, the dirty water, the laughter, Daniel's cold eyes, followed her like a shadow. Her breath came fast and sharp. The humiliation clung to her skin as tightly as her soaked dress. Dirty water dripped from her sleeves and hit the floor in tiny splashes. Drip, drip, drip. The sound was too loud in the cold, tiled room. She gripped the edge of the sink, her knuckles turning white. She expected to feel anger, shame, heartbreak. Instead, a strange, powerful calm settled over her. She looked up. Her reflection stared back, wet, tired, stained with murky water, but steady. Her eyes were dry, her posture firm. There were no tears, no shaking hands, no fear, only clarity. The woman looking back at her wasn't defeated. She was finished. Slowly, Emma lifted her left hand. The gold ring on her finger had once meant love, loyalty, and partnership. Now it felt like a chain she had worn long after the key was lost. She twisted it gently. The ring slid off more easily than she expected, almost like it had been ready to leave too. She placed it on the sink. The small metal band made a soft clink against the porcelain. The sound echoed through the room like the closing of a chapter. "I'm done," she whispered. The words were soft, but inside her they thundered like a breaking storm. Emma leaned forward, letting the quiet settle. Her mind drifted, not to the dirty water, but to the many moments before it. It was a year ago. She had made dinner, his favorite meal. The table was set with candles. She timed everything so he could come home early for once. But Daniel had walked in late, tired and annoyed, complaining about work and how no one respected him. Emma had gathered her courage like fragile glass. "Daniel, I think we should consider counseling," she said gently. "We keep arguing. We keep misunderstanding each other. Maybe we need help." She remembered the way he laughed. Not a loud laugh, but a sharp, mocking one. "Counseling? For what? We're fine. You're the one who overthinks everything." He kissed her forehead, not really looking at her, and walked away to watch TV. She ate dinner alone. That was the night she learned something important. He didn't want to fix things. He only wanted to ignore them. But tonight he'd gone beyond ignoring. He had made sure everyone saw what he really thought of her. And he had done it in public. Emma looked back at the ring on the sink. She felt lighter without it, freer. She grabbed a paper towel, dried her hands slowly, then dabbed her face. She wiped off the last drops of dirty water. The stains on her dress remained, just like the stains Daniel had thrown on their marriage long before tonight. Her phone buzzed in her bag. She pulled it out. One message. "Daniel, where are you? You left too fast. Come back." No apology, no concern, just entitlement. She read the words once, then calmly deleted them. Then she opened a different conversation. Mr. Collins, her lawyer, the man who handled every confidential contract, every investment, every part of her hidden life, was already marked as a favorite contact. Hours earlier, he had already started processing the final Baxter Tech purchase based on her approval. Tonight, her focus shifted. Her fingers moved without hesitation. "Emma, proceed with the board meeting and divorce prep. The acquisition is already in motion. I want everything ready by tomorrow." She hit send. She hit send. No turning back. She knew Collins would understand. Finalize the share acquisition. Prepare the legal grounds. Begin divorce paperwork. She dropped the used paper towel in the trash, smoothed her dress as best she could, and lifted her chin. When she opened the restroom door and walked out, there was no fear, no doubt, only purpose. Tonight broke something inside her, but it also freed her. The next step would change everything. Tomorrow, Daniel wouldn't be talking to a hurt wife at home. He'd be walking straight into a strategist's plan. The sound of the front door slamming shook the entire house. Daniel had returned from the dinner later that night, drunk and irritated, shouting her name as he stumbled through the hallway. "Emma, why did you leave like that? You embarrassed me." His angry footsteps echoed across the floor, growing louder as he searched for her. But Emma wasn't hiding. She was waiting. She stood in her home office with her arms crossed, calm as glass. Her heart didn't race. Her hands didn't shake. She had already taken off the ring and put it in a small drawer. She was no longer the woman who chased peace. She was the woman who prepared for war. Daniel burst into the doorway, red-faced and unsteady. "We need to talk," he barked. Emma spoke before he could continue. "Not tonight." Her tone was so steady, so cold, that Daniel blinked. He took a step back, stunned. She had never spoken to him like that. He tried again, voice raised. "You made me look bad in front of everyone." Emma simply reached forward and closed her laptop lid in a firm, final motion. The message was clear. Daniel scoffed, turned, and stormed out, slamming the bedroom door behind him. The house fell silent. Emma reopened her laptop. Now the work began. She moved with precision, as if she had been preparing for this moment long before tonight. Because she had. Every quiet suspicion, every ignored detail, every moment she swallowed a question had slowly turned into a habit of keeping proof. She pulled up her locked digital file labeled Personal Records. Inside was everything she had silently collected over the months, because Emma was the type of woman who noticed things even when people assumed she didn't. Screenshot number 1, a photo of the message from Chloe earlier that evening. "See you after." Screenshot number 2, a picture she had once taken of Daniel's tablet screen when he left it on the couch. The call log showed Chloe's name repeatedly, late at night. Folder number 1, audio recordings. She played a short clip. Daniel's voice whispered, "I'll be there soon, Chloe. She's asleep." She had recorded it months ago from the hallway when he took late-night calls in the kitchen, thinking she was upstairs. It was legal in their state to record her own home conversations he was having in her presence, even if he didn't realize she could hear. Her jaw didn't clench. Her breath didn't hitch. She kept playing the files, each one from a different night, each whispering betrayal. Then she opened another folder labeled Baxter Tech. Inside, emails Daniel had accidentally forwarded to their shared printer at home instead of the office. Copies of reports he bragged about fixing before sending to Mr. Lawson. Attachments he had once asked Emma to quickly check for spelling, which she quietly saved. She had learned to keep a copy whenever something felt off. Folder number 2, financial irregularities expense reports that didn't match project budgets. Purchase orders Chloe had approved that led to vendors with no clear track record. Approvals Daniel signed without reading, just to impress Lawson by moving fast. Piece by piece, the documents painted a picture. Chloe wasn't just a mistress. She was involved in risky financial behavior that could ruin Daniel's position. Emma breathed slowly, letting the truth settle. Everything she suspected was real, and now she had proof, not just of betrayal as a wife, but of misconduct that mattered to Baxter Tech's future. Her phone buzzed, a message from Mr. Collins. "Collins, I saw your earlier text. Acquisition is closing in the morning. Are you safe?" Emma replied with one sentence. "Emma, call me." Seconds later, the screen lit up with an incoming video call. She answered. Mr. Collins, always calm in his dark suit and glasses, appeared on screen with a serious expression. He looked like a man ready for strategy, not sleep. "Tell me everything," he said. Emma did. She showed him the screenshots. She played the recordings. She forwarded the documents from her secure drive. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing firmer, sharper. When she finished, he said, "Emma, this is enough for divorce, misconduct claims, and board-level action. Are you sure you want to proceed on all fronts?" Her voice didn't waver. "Yes," he nodded once. "The Baxter Tech deal will finalize by tomorrow morning," he said. "Once the registry updates, you'll officially hold just over 51% through Harper Strategic Holdings. That gives you the legal power to call an emergency board meeting. Emma met his gaze through the screen, her eyes calm and steady. Schedule it, she said, as soon as the ownership is confirmed. Mr. Collins leaned back slightly, stunned by her resolve, but not surprised. It will change everything, he said quietly. That's the point, she replied. The call ended. Emma closed her laptop, her heart calm and certain. Tonight, she didn't just gather evidence. She built a weapon, and she aligned it with her new majority control. Tomorrow, Daniel would walk into work thinking the company was his chance at greatness, without knowing who now sat at the top. Daniel stormed into the office the next morning with the force of a man who believed the world owed him respect. He didn't knock anything over, but his presence felt like a shove, loud, heavy, impatient. His shoes clicked hard against the polished floor. His eyes were still red from the night before, but his pride was intact. In his mind, Emma leaving the dinner early was her mistake, not his. He walked in expecting sympathy for having a difficult wife, expecting Chloe's soft attention, expecting another day where he could complain and feel important. Chloe was already at her desk, dressed sharply, typing quickly. She looked up at him with a bright smile, the kind that said she still believed she had the upper hand. Rough night, she teased softly. Daniel smirked and adjusted his tie. Nothing I can't handle. Mr. Lawson, the department head, walked by and gave Daniel a heavy pat on the back. There he is, the man of the hour, Lawson boomed. Good show last night. Daniel puffed his chest, proud of the approval. Everything seemed normal. Everything felt safe, but safety can vanish faster than pride. At 9:17 a.m., the office phones rang all at once. A synchronized chime. Unusual. Disruptive. Daniel frowned. Moments later, his assistant stepped out of her cubicle, looking nervous. Mr. Harper, the board is requesting your immediate presence in the main conference room. Daniel blinked. The board? Why? I wasn't told, she replied. Chloe glanced up, confused. Do you need me to come? She asked, half rising from her chair. But Daniel's ego had already decided this was good news. A board meeting with his name on it? Maybe it was about a promotion. Maybe Lawson had put in a word. He straightened his tie again, flashed a grin at Chloe, and walked toward the conference room with confident strides. Inside the conference room, the atmosphere was nothing like he expected. Silence, cold, thick enough to choke on. Several board members sat at the long glass table. A corporate attorney and the company's internal HR director were there as well. Papers lay neatly arranged in front of each of them. No one spoke. No one smiled. And sitting at the head of the table, Emma, clean, calm, composed, her dark hair perfectly brushed, her posture flawless. A single folder sat in front of her, closed as if waiting for the right moment. Daniel stopped walking, his breath caught. His vision blurred for a second as confusion slammed into him. What are you doing here, huh? He asked, voice a little louder than he intended. Mr. Lawson leaned toward another board member and hissed under his breath. Why is she here? But the board member he whispered to didn't answer. His expression stayed professional, guarded. Emma lifted her eyes slowly and met Daniel's gaze without blinking. Good morning, Daniel, she said calmly. Please have a seat. Her tone didn't request. It commanded. Daniel looked around the table, waiting for someone else to take over. When no one did, he laughed weakly. This is some kind of joke, right? No one laughed with him. The chair of the governance committee, Mr. Hayes, cleared his throat. Sit down, Mr. Harper, he said. Daniel, trembling with confusion, dropped into the nearest chair. Emma opened the folder. Inside was a single sheet. She slid it to Mr. Hayes, who adjusted his glasses and began reading aloud. Ownership distribution update, he said. As of this morning's registry, Harper Strategic Holdings holds 51.3% of Baxter Tech. Daniel froze. No, he whispered. No, that's impossible. Emma turned another document toward the rest of the board. This one held the legal confirmation of beneficial ownership. Her birth name, Emma Lane, and her married name, Emma Harper, both appeared, tying her identity to Harper Strategic Holdings clearly. Mr. Lawson swallowed hard. You're the majority shareholder? He asked. Emma looked at him evenly. I am. The board members had already reviewed these documents earlier. They knew the numbers were real. This meeting was not about whether she owned the company. It was about what she intended to do with that power. Daniel's world cracked straight down the middle. All the times he ignored her, all the nights he whispered to Chloe, all the jokes he made about her being just a simple wife. They came crashing back like falling bricks. He tried to stand, but his legs shook. Emma, please, you can't be serious. This is my job. My career. Emma didn't raise her voice. She didn't show anger. She didn't show joy. She simply delivered her line like a verdict already sealed. Daniel, she said softly, based on the evidence of misconduct in your behavior representing this company, you're dismissed from your position, effective immediately. She nodded once to the HR director, who had a folder ready with formal termination documents. The room went still. Board members exchanged controlled, shocked looks. Chloe, standing just inside the doorway now, went pale. Daniel stared at Emma, unable to breathe. His downfall had begun, and he was the very last one to see it coming. Outside that room waited one more blow, one Emma had prepared not just as a boss, but as a woman reclaiming her life. The conference room door opened with sudden force as two security officers stepped inside. Their heavy boots hit the floor with quick, sharp steps. Everyone turned. Daniel's head jerked up, his face pale. What's happening? He stammered. The taller guard, Officer Green, spoke firmly. Mr. Harper, you need to come with us. Daniel's eyes bounced between the guards, the board, and Emma. Emma, tell them to stop. This is a misunderstanding. But Emma didn't speak. She simply closed her folder, stood, and stepped aside, giving the guards a clear path. Daniel grabbed the back of his chair like a man drowning. You can't fire me like this. I've been here for years. No one answered. The silence was a verdict. His pride cracked first. His voice followed, trembling. You can't. Emma, please. This is my life. But the guards each took an arm and guided him out. He didn't fight physically. He fought with denial, with disbelief, with ragged pleas. As they escorted him down the hallway, the office buzzed with whispers. Phones lifted discreetly, heads peered over cubicle walls. Every step Daniel took echoed with humiliation. Chloe hurried out of her office, heels clacking, eyes wide with panic. Daniel, what's happening? Why is security here? She cried. Officer Green stepped slightly in front of Daniel. Move aside, miss, he said. Chloe tried to push around him anyway. Daniel, talk to me. Daniel turned his head toward her, desperate. Chloe, just stay close. I need... But before he could finish, another voice cut through the tension. Miss Chloe Miller, please stop there. Mr. Collins, Emma's lawyer and now corporate counsel to the new majority owner, stepped forward carrying a thick envelope. Chloe froze. Collins held up the documents slightly, addressing her in a firm but professional tone. These contain evidence of financial irregularities tied to purchases you approved, he said. The company will be conducting a formal investigation. You'll be contacted by internal and external auditors. Chloe's face drained of all color. She grabbed Daniel's arm, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You told me this wouldn't come back to me, she hissed. You said no one would find out. Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came out, because truthfully, he had never thought about consequences at all. Chloe looked at the guards, then at Collins, then at Daniel again. Her expression hardened. You're useless to me now, she snapped. She let go of his arm, turned, and walked away without looking back. Daniel watched her go, stunned. He was losing everything and everyone at once. When they reached the lobby, Emma was already there, standing calmly beside Mr. Collins. Daniel's heart crumbled. Emma, please. We need to talk. We can fix this, he begged. But Collins stepped forward and handed Daniel a second stack of papers, thicker than the termination documents. Mr. Harper, he said, voice strictly professional, these are your divorce filings and supporting evidence. This is official service. Daniel took them with shaking hands. No, Emma, you don't mean this. Emma met his eyes. Her expression wasn't cruel. It was empty, like she had already let go a long time ago, and today was only the paperwork. Around them, employees had gathered near the stairs and windows. They whispered, recorded videos. Watched the fall of the man who once walked through the office like he owned it. Public reckoning. Daniel felt every pair of eyes like lead on his shoulders. He stepped toward Emma, voice cracking, begging, "Please, don't do this. You know I love you. You know I didn't mean—" Emma walked past him, like he was air, like he was a stranger asking for directions she didn't have time to give. She didn't pause. She didn't tremble. She didn't look back. But when she reached the glass doors, she finally spoke, voice soft but sharp enough to cut through the whole lobby. "Love doesn't look like what you did last night." Daniel broke. He collapsed into a lobby chair, clutching the papers, his breath shaking, his eyes burning with a mixture of shame and shock. Emma stepped into the elevator with Mr. Collins beside her. The doors began to close. For the first time since meeting her, Daniel realized something devastating. She was never going to be on his side again. As the elevator doors shut, Emma said quietly to Collins, "Now, let's finish everything properly." The pen landed on the desk with a firm finality. Emma exhaled sharply, the sound filling the quiet office like a thunderclap. The sudden intensity of the moment made her shoulders drop with release. In front of her, the final divorce documents sat neatly stacked, each page marked with her calm, steady signature and the official court stamps. It was over. Not the memory, not every scar, but the chain that once bound her to Daniel. Several weeks had passed since the day security walked him out of Baxter Tech. In that time, lawyers had gone back and forth, financial disclosures had been made, and every piece of their shared life had been divided, signed, and sealed. Now the last signature was done. Sunlight streamed through the large office windows of her new executive floor, bathing her desk in warm gold. The brightness almost felt symbolic, like the room itself recognized her freedom. She leaned back and took in the quiet. No shouting, no humiliation, no tension pressing against her chest. For the first time in years, she felt real air reaching her lungs. Her empire, Harper's Strategic Holdings, no longer had to remain half-hidden. Her identity as the majority owner of Baxter Tech was now public and accepted inside the company. There were still legal structures and trusts for protection, but she no longer had to pretend to be just the wife. She could run her life and her company openly, without fear that someone would mistake her silence for weakness. Emma stood, walked to the window, and looked down at the city below. Workers moved in and out of buildings. Cars flowed like currents through the streets. People lived their lives with normal problems. She had survived something different. Not just a bad marriage, but a slow erosion of self-worth, followed by a sharp public betrayal. And yet, she was still standing. Later that day, Emma walked into a conference room for her first larger meeting as the confirmed majority owner of Baxter Tech. Board members, department heads, HR, and legal were present. There was no mocking tone, no pity, no dismissive smirks, only attention, only respect. Emma opened the meeting with a calm voice. "We're implementing new policies," she said. "Clear anti-harassment rules, transparent reporting, training for managers. More than that, we're changing how this company treats people, not just how it counts profits." She looked directly at Mr. Lawson, who now sat quieter than usual, his earlier arrogance dulled by recent events. "No more cultures where cruelty is entertainment," she added. Heads nodded, pens scribbled. The HR director looked almost relieved. A new era began under her direction. She wasn't just removing Daniel, she was making sure the kind of environment that applauded him that night never thrived here again. Across town, Daniel sat alone in a small, dimly lit apartment. The room was modest, just a single couch, a cheap table, a flickering lamp, and cardboard boxes he hadn't bothered to unpack. His shoulders slumped. His eyes were tired and hollow. On the scratch coffee table lay a newspaper with the headline, "Former Manager Daniel Harper Terminated After Misconduct Allegations. Internal Reforms Announced." The article didn't mention his name in big letters, but it named his role and his department. Anyone who knew him could connect the dots. His phone buzzed beside him. He grabbed it quickly, hoping, just hoping, it was Chloe. Maybe she had reconsidered, but when he opened their conversation, he saw the long list of messages he had sent her. None of them read. Chloe, meanwhile, sat in a new car, wearing a new bag, laughing beside another executive from a different company. someone with more power, more influence. She opened Daniel's message thread for a split second, saw the flood of texts, rolled her eyes, and locked the phone without replying. People like Chloe didn't stay when the benefits disappeared. Daniel finally understood that. Meanwhile, Emma prepared her garden chair outside her home. The house felt different now, quieter, safer. It was evening, and a soft wind carried the scent of fresh leaves. Birds chirped, the sky glowed with muted pinks and oranges, the day folding gently into night. She sat down slowly, letting the peace settle into her bones. She wasn't thinking about revenge anymore. She wasn't thinking about Daniel. She wasn't thinking about the past. She was thinking about freedom, about the life she had regained, about the woman she had become. Emma Harper was no longer invisible, no longer overshadowed, no longer underestimated. She was whole. She closed her eyes, and the calm voice inside her whispered a truth she had earned. Sometimes the person they underestimate becomes the storm that rewrites their destiny. The scene softened. The garden grew quiet. The sky dimmed into a peaceful blue. Emma breathed in the future. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video. Unaware his wife had just inherited her father's fortune, husband and his family mocked her at the funeral. What happened when the will was read shocked them. He didn't just mock her. He humiliated her at her lowest moment, right beside her father's coffin, in front of every guest, while his mother whispered poison into his ear, and the woman he secretly spent nights with stood behind him, smiling. A few days after losing the only person who ever truly protected her, Emily Carter walked into the funeral hall, her grief still raw, her father's final warning still echoing in her heart. Do not trust them, Emily. She hadn't understood what he meant then, but she was about to. Adam stood with his family in a tight circle, their laughter barely disguised. They looked at her with the same cold eyes they'd used for years, eyes that judged, eyes that wanted control, eyes that believed she was nothing now that her father was gone. She looks pathetic, his sister whispered. Her father probably left her nothing, his mother added. Emily heard every word, but she said nothing. And then came Sabrina, the woman Adam claimed was just a friend. She slid her hand down his arm and whispered a sentence that made Emily's knees weaken. After today, you need to make a decision. Adam didn't pull away. He didn't defend his wife. He didn't comfort her. Instead, he marched toward her, grabbed her hand too tightly, and hissed under his breath, "Don't embarrass me today." What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Emily's father had already made a decision of his own. A decision sealed in documents her husband didn't even know existed. A decision that would expose their greed, their lies, and their betrayal in a single moment so shocking it would leave Adam and his entire family frozen in place. Dear viewer, thank you for being here. If you're watching without subscribing, it's like letting Emily stand alone in that funeral hall again. When you subscribe, you stand with every quiet soul who has ever been mocked, underestimated, or betrayed at their weakest moment. Click that button and tell me where you're watching from. The sound of strained breathing snapped through the room like a warning. Emily Carter, 32 years old, rushed forward before the panic could fully rise inside her chest. Her father's chest had caught in one uneven lift, and for a second she feared it would be the last. She placed a trembling hand over his, whispering soft comfort until his breathing steadied again. Only then did she allow herself to exhale. The dim lamplight painted the room in a warm glow, but the warmth felt borrowed, held together by habit, not hope. Emily adjusted the pillow beneath her father's head with a practiced gentleness. She had done this every night for months, ever since his health collapsed. A portable monitor hummed quietly by the bed, its weak green lights blinking. His wrist still carried a faded hospital band, a small sign of how long she had been fighting for his comfort at home instead of keeping him in a ward. Emily wasn't the kind of woman who complained. She never had been. She had lived a quiet life, built on small sacrifices and quiet loyalty. Growing up as the only child of Henry Carter, she learned responsibility young. Her mother passed when she was 12, and her father filled both roles without hesitation. He showed her how to balance accounts, track household records, and read contracts, not because he expected her to need them, but because he wanted her to never depend on anyone blindly. Flashbacks blurred into the present as she sat beside him now. She remembered his calm voice teaching her how to sign her name correctly, how to read the fine print others ignored, how to stand firm when people tried to make her feel small. At the time, she thought he was teaching her adulthood. Now she realized he had been teaching her protection. Her father, even in weakness, held on to dignity. She had inherited that from him. Quiet strength, not money. She hadn't grown up wealthy. Her father managed a small family company and lived simply. Over the years, everything he earned, every property, every account, he placed carefully in arrangements she didn't fully understand. When she'd asked, he would smile and say, "You'll understand it when you need to." He never bragged, never boasted. But now she suspected he was preparing something. Something he wanted her to know. Something he had guarded fiercely. Tonight she read him an old letter she wrote when she was 16. He had kept it folded at the bottom of his drawer, the ink smudged by time but not forgotten. Her voice shook slightly as she read, remembering the girl she used to be. Hopeful, sensitive, trusting. Her father's eyes opened a little. Weak but focused. Focused only on her. "Emily," he whispered, the word fragile but urgent. She leaned closer, brushing a stray gray hair from his forehead. "Yes, Dad? Listen to me. When I'm gone," his voice thinned like fading thread. "Promise me you will protect what I've protected for you." Emily frowned. His tone held something she didn't understand, something he was almost afraid to say. "What do you mean? Protect what?" Henry Carter's eyes shifted toward the doorway. Just for a moment, as if someone might be listening from the hallway outside his bedroom. As if this house, which had always felt safe, now had corners she should be wary of. Before he could answer, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The vibration cut through the silence like a rude knock. Emily reached for it hesitantly. A message from Adam, her husband, 35 years old, charismatic to outsiders, curt behind closed doors. "Be home early. My mother wants to talk to you. Again." The words tightened her chest. For months, Emily had been splitting her time between this house and the one she shared with Adam. But most nights she stayed here. Conversations with Adam's mother felt like walking through a field of hidden traps. She always found a way to remind Emily she wasn't good enough for their family, not elegant enough, not polished enough, not wealthy enough. Emily typed nothing back. She stared at the screen until it dimmed, her expression sinking into something unreadable. Her father watched her with tired knowing. He had seen the strain long before she admitted it to herself. "Emily," he whispered again, voice hoarse. She turned back quickly, gripping his hand. "I'm here, Dad. I'm right here." His fingers pressed weakly against hers. "Do not trust them, Emily." The words struck the air like a blade. Emily stilled, completely. "Dad," she breathed, unsure if he meant Adam, Adam's family, or someone else entirely. But his eyes had already closed, drained from the effort. The room felt heavier now, as though the shadows themselves had leaned closer. Emily held his hand tighter, her heart beating with a new, uneasy rhythm she didn't yet understand. Outside the bedroom, her phone buzzed again, longer this time, almost as if warning her that Adam's world would soon collide with hers in a way she wasn't ready for. And somewhere toward the back of the house, she thought she heard a soft thud, like a side door closing, a faint sound out of place at this late hour. For a second she froze, listening. But the noise faded, and the monitor's weak beeps filled the silence again. She told herself it was just the wind. She didn't yet know it was the first sign that someone else had taken an interest in what her father had protected for her. The laughter hit Emily like a slap the moment she unlocked the front door of the house she shared with Adam. Loud, carefree, out of place. She froze in the doorway, the sound dragging her out of the heavy thoughts she carried from her father's bedside. It was late. Later than she'd promised Adam. She had stayed longer with her father after his breathing scare, making sure he was settled before she left. Her clothes still carried the faint scent of his room, antiseptic and old aftershave. Adam was on the couch, leaning back as if his entire world had no weight. He was 35 years old, tall, neatly dressed, and always polished when other people watched. His smile was wide, brighter than anything he had shown her in weeks. Across from him sat a woman Emily immediately recognized. Sabrina Moore, 29, introduced months ago as his friend from work. She was stylish, confident, with a voice that slid across the room like silk, and far too comfortable inside Emily's home. Sabrina laughed again, her hand lightly touching Adam's knee before she noticed Emily in the doorway. "Oh, Emily!" Sabrina jumped up, walking toward her with open arms. "It's been so long." Her hug lasted a moment too long, her perfume strong enough to cloud the air, a sharp floral scent that dragged up a memory Emily had pushed away. A flash. Months earlier, Adam coming home late, his shirt carrying that same perfume. Emily had asked casually if he had visited a store. He'd answered too quickly. "Probably someone at work hugged me." She told herself she was imagining things. She didn't want to be the jealous wife. She trusted too easily. Now, the scent felt like proof she didn't want. Emily gently pulled away. "I didn't know we had company." Adam shrugged without looking at her. "You came home late. We didn't think you'd mind." Sabrina smiled, taking a seat again, this time closer to him than before. Before Emily could respond, another voice drifted from the dining area. "Late again?" Adam's mother, Margaret, stepped forward. 60 years old, sharp eyes, always judging. She crossed her arms as if Emily had committed an offense. "You should be here supporting your husband, not running around all evening." Emily kept her voice calm. "I was helping my father. He had a difficult night." His breathing almost stopped. Margaret rolled her eyes so hard it was almost theatrical. Yes, we know. Everything is always about your father." Emily swallowed the sting. She didn't want to fight. Not here, not now. She was too tired to explain hospice visits to people who didn't care. She set her bag on the table. "I'm going upstairs to change." But as she started up the stairs, she heard Sabrina giggle softly. "This house is cozy, but it could be so much nicer with a woman's touch." Adam laughed. "That's what I keep saying." Emily's hand tightened on the railing. She forced herself to keep climbing, refusing to look back. Her chest tightened with something she couldn't name. Fear, anger, confusion, maybe all three tangled together. Inside the bedroom, she sat on the edge of the bed and let herself breathe. Deep, shaky breaths. She had met Sabrina before. It was never a long meeting, always brief, always with Sabrina acting a little too warm with Adam, a little too casual with Emily. As if Emily was a guest in her own marriage. Was she imagining things again? No, something was wrong, deeply wrong. She lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Her father's fading voice echoed in her mind. "Do not trust them, Emily." Her phone buzzed. A text from Adam. "You could at least try to be polite." That was all he had to say after leaving her alone for hours, after letting his mother scold her, after laughing with another woman while her father lay struggling to breathe. She put the phone down without replying. Minutes passed before she heard footsteps heading upstairs. 2 sets, not one. Light, feminine ones alongside heavier ones. Emily sat up, listening. Whispers. First Adam's voice. Low, annoyed. "Just give it time. She won't cause trouble." Then Sabrina's voice. Softer, confident. "But you said you'd talk to her soon." "I'm getting tired of waiting." Emily's heartbeat thudded against her ribs. Footsteps moved past her door and toward the guest room. A door clicked softly. Then Sabrina's voice again, barely above a whisper, but clear through the thin walls. "She won't be in the picture much longer." Emily's breath caught in her throat. The hallway fell silent. She didn't move. She didn't blink. She didn't even breathe for a full second. Her father's warning echoed again. "Do not trust them?" Time crawled. At some point later, when the whispers had faded and the house had sunk into a fake, heavy quiet, Emily heard the front door creak open downstairs, then close gently. Soft footsteps left across the porch, followed by the faint sound of a car engine starting and pulling away. It sounded like someone leaving without wanting to be seen. A hint, quiet but sharp, that something about tomorrow would change everything. Emily stared at the ceiling through the darkness, torn between going back to her father's side immediately and collapsing from exhaustion. She didn't know it yet, but by morning, Both worlds, her father's and Adam's, would collide in a way she could never undo. The phone ringing yanked Emily out of a shallow, restless sleep. Her heart jumped before she even checked the screen. It was the nurse who helped with her father at night. "Emily, I'm sorry to wake you," the woman said gently. "His breathing is getting worse. I think you should come now." That was all it took. Emily grabbed her keys with shaking hands and drove through the half-empty streets, the city still dark and quiet. By the time she burst into her father's room, the door slammed against the wall. The violent sound broke the fragile silence where her father lay. His chest jolted, his breathing catching in a painful gasp. Emily rushed to his bedside, grabbing his hand with both of hers. "Dad, I'm here," she whispered urgently, fighting panic. His eyelids fluttered, struggling to open. Henry Carter, 67 years old, once strong and sharp-minded, now looked as fragile as the thin sheets covering him. The medical monitor beside him beeped irregularly, each sound a reminder that time was slipping faster than she could hold on to. Emily lowered her face close to his so he could see her clearly. "I'm not leaving you tonight," she said, voice cracking. The intensity in the room slowly softened into something quieter, something heavier. Emily sat down, adjusting his blanket, brushing sweat from his forehead. She knew every movement now, every sign of discomfort, every shift of breath. Caring for him had become her whole world these past months. Anytime she tried to spend longer at Adam's house, guilt dragged her back here. A tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. She didn't want him to see her break. He blinked slowly, his eyes holding a silent apology. Apology for leaving her too soon. "Emily." His voice was thin, almost lost. "I'm right here, Dad," she whispered. His breathing steadied slightly, enough for him to study her face, enough for a flicker of memory to spark in both of them. Without warning, the room began to fill with echoing flashes, their shared past rising like soft waves. Emily, at 5, sitting on Henry's lap, learning how to write her name, his warm hand guiding her smaller one. That's it, slow and steady. "Your name means something. Never sign it carelessly." Emily at 12 after her mother passed, Henry sitting beside her with 2 cups of warm milk. "You are stronger than you realize," he whispered into her hair. Emily at 20, learning how to read financial forms, Henry pointing at each line. "People will try to confuse you, Emily. Always know what belongs to you." Henry sealing a thick letter, writing carefully on the front, "For Emily only." He locked it inside a folder she didn't know existed, then slid that folder into a locked briefcase he kept in his study. The present blurred with the warmth of each memory. Emily's grip on his hand tightened. "Dad, why did you teach me all that?" she whispered, as if finally asking a question she had never dared to before. Henry exhaled shakily. His eyes moved toward the dresser as if remembering something hidden, something important. Then he looked back at her with a seriousness she hadn't seen in years. "Emily," he said softly, "Adam's family wants what's ours." Her stomach tightened. He lifted a trembling hand, brushing her arm as if trying to pass strength into her. "I've kept everything in your name, every property, every account, because I knew one day you would need protection." Emily shook her head gently, trying to calm him. "Dad, you should rest. You don't have to think about that now." But his expression sharpened despite the pain. "No, listen." His voice grew urgent. "Your husband, his mother, they are not what they pretend to be. I saw their intentions long before you noticed the signs. They came to me more than once, asking questions about my company, my properties, like they were already counting what would be theirs." Emily's heart dropped. She remembered Sabrina's whisper from earlier. She won't be in the picture much longer. She had tried to dismiss it, but now her father's words dug into the same fear. Henry squeezed her hand with surprising strength. "You must protect what I protected for you." His eyes watered, not from sickness, but from worry. "I trust you more than anyone," he whispered, echoing the same words he had told her in her childhood. Then, his breathing changed, a sharp hitch, a painful choke. "Dad?" Emily stood up quickly, her breath fleeing her chest. "Dad, talk to me. What is it?" He struggled to lift his head. "I need to tell you where the documents are." But the sentence never finished. His breath broke mid-word. His chest seized in a violent, uneven rise. "Dad!" Emily grabbed him, her voice shaking. "Stay with me, please." The monitor beside him let out a sharp warning beep. He tried to speak, one more word, but only a weak rasp escaped. Emily's hands shook uncontrollably as she pressed the call button for the nurse and reached for her phone with the other, tears blurring her vision. She knew the ambulance would come, but some part of her already understood they might be too late. And then, his eyes widened. Not in fear, but in warning. He looked past her, toward the bedroom doorway. Emily turned sharply. But the hallway was empty, or had someone just slipped out of sight? She heard hurried footsteps further down the corridor, then a latch. A second later, somewhere outside the house, a car engine started, soft, quick, as if leaving before being noticed. In the stillness that followed, Henry's last breath trembled through the room, and something inside Emily broke and hardened at the same time. 3 days later, the world moved on as if nothing had happened. But Emily hadn't. She barely stepped into the funeral hall before it hit her. A wave of harsh whispers that sliced through the air like sharp glass. It wasn't grief. It wasn't sympathy. It was judgment. Dozens of eyes followed her, tracing her steps as if she were a stranger walking into the wrong room. The air felt dense, heavy with unspoken opinions. Her father's portrait stood at the front, framed, gentle, proud, but the warmth she once felt around him didn't reach her here. The intensity of the moment forced her still. She gripped the edge of a chair to keep herself standing. Then she saw them. Adam and his family. Grouped in a corner like a cluster of polished statues, smirking, whispering, watching her instead of honoring her father. Adam, 35 years old, looked freshly pressed in his black suit, like he was attending an important business event. His mother, Margaret, sat beside him with her usual cold expression. Adam's younger sister, Chloe, was there too, chewing gum with little respect. And leaning slightly behind Adam, as if she had every right to stand there, was Sabrina, the woman who was supposedly just a friend from work. Emily's stomach twisted. The whispers weren't truly quiet. They were the kind of low voices people used when they wanted to be heard, but still pretend they were being discreet. "She looks pathetic," Chloe said, loud enough for 2 nearby guests to glance over. Margaret added, "Her father probably left her nothing anyway." That man never had real money. Adam didn't stop them. He didn't defend her. Instead, he smirked, like he enjoyed the show, like he had already decided how this day would end. Emily tried to breathe. She tried to focus on her father's photo, his gentle smile, the one that always told her she wasn't alone. But the voices kept pulling her back into the storm. "Adam deserves someone who isn't a burden," Margaret said, lifting her chin. "Someone like—" Her eyes flicked to Sabrina. She leaned in toward Adam's ear and murmured, "You could do so much better than her." Her voice, low and poisonous, meant only for him. Emily's chest tightened painfully. She looked at Adam. He didn't even look ashamed. He seemed entertained. Sabrina stepped closer to him, touching his arm as if the entire room wasn't watching. Her fingertips slid down his sleeve in a slow movement, too familiar to be innocent. She leaned in toward his ear. "After the funeral," she whispered, "you need to make a decision." Emily's heart throbbed painfully in her chest. It wasn't just the touch. It wasn't just the whisper. It was the perfume. That same sharply sweet scent she found on Adam's jacket months ago. That same smile she noticed when he came home late. That same voice she heard barely contained in the hallway 2 nights before her father died. Everything clicked. All the moments she brushed off, all the doubts she pushed down, they collided into a truth she could no longer hide from. Her knees weakened, the world around her blurred. She steadied herself on the side of a wooden pew as memories hit her like quiet lightning. Adam coming home late. Sabrina brushing lint off his shirt with gentle hands. Adam laughing in the living room with her, while Emily stood at the doorway, invisible. Sabrina's whisper upstairs. She won't be in the picture much longer. Her father's last warning. Adam's family wants what's ours. Emily swallowed hard, forcing the tears back. She would not fall apart here. Not in front of them. Not in front of people waiting for her to crumble. She walked to the front where her father's portrait stood. She touched the frame lightly, whispering inside her heart, "I'm sorry you have to see me like this." For a brief moment, the room quieted. A soft memory settled over her. The nights she sat with her father, reading, talking, listening. His voice echoed gently in her mind. "Strength isn't loud, Emily. It's steady." She exhaled slowly. Then footsteps approached behind her, heavy, impatient ones. Adam grabbed her hand, not gently, not lovingly. His grip was rough, as if he owned her skin, her choices, her grief. He leaned close, his voice low and sharp. "Don't embarrass me today." His words crashed into her like a cold wave. Embarrass him? This was her father's funeral. The man who raised her alone. The man who protected her his whole life. And Adam wanted her to behave? Emily pulled her hand slightly, trying to free herself, but Adam tightened his grip until her fingers ached. Her father's warning whispered through her memory like a ghost. "Do not trust them, Emily." She tried again to pull away, but Adam's fingers only pressed harder. His mother glanced over with thinly veiled annoyance. Sabrina watched with quiet satisfaction, like a spectator who already knew how the scene should end. And then, a sudden hush fell over the room. Someone new had entered the hall. Emily turned slightly, her breath catching, when she recognized the dark suit and the solemn expression. Her father's lawyer. He walked toward her slowly, carrying a sealed folder under his arm. And his eyes were locked on Emily, as if he knew something the others didn't, like he was carrying the message her father never got to finish, a message that would break everything open. Emily shut the bedroom door behind her with force, her breath unsteady, her hands trembling so badly she had to grip the dresser to stay upright. The humiliation from the funeral still burned inside her. Adam's cruel grip, Sabrina's whisper, Margaret's smirk, all stacked on top of her grief like weights crushing her chest. She had come straight back to her father's house after the funeral, claiming she needed to sort his things. Adam hadn't argued. He was too busy speaking in low tones with his mother and Sabrina near the lawyer. The moment she stepped into her father's room, the noise of the hall felt miles away. But something else burned too. Her father's warning. "Do not trust them, Emily." The intensity of his voice, so weak and yet so urgent, echoed in her mind until it drowned out every other thought. She forced herself to move, to breathe, to do anything except fall apart. She crossed the room, heading toward the wooden chair beside her father's bed. She sank onto it slowly, letting the stillness of the room wrap around her like a cold blanket. Everything in this room held her father's presence, the faint scent of his aftershave, the stack of books he never got to finish, the small frame photo of her mother on the table, the briefcase in the corner that she remembered from childhood but had never seen open. Emily brushed her hand across the quilt, remembering the calm nights she spent here reading to him, talking about old memories, laughing through pain. But now she felt something different, something she had felt growing since the funeral began. A shift, a spark, a quiet anger forming under her sadness. She began gathering his belongings with gentle hands, organizing them into small piles. Each object carried a story. His glasses, the watch he'd worn for decades, the pen he used to sign every important document. Then she noticed something wedged behind a stack of books on the second shelf, an envelope, cream-colored, unopened, and written in her father's careful handwriting, "For Emily only." Her breath caught. Slowly she picked it up, running her thumb along the sealed edge as if she were touching something sacred. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a folded letter, handwritten in blue ink. Emily unfolded it carefully, afraid the words might fall apart if she rushed. The first line stole her breath. "My dear Emily, if you are reading this, it means I have left you sooner than I wanted." Her throat tightened. She blinked away tears and read on. "I need you to know that I've ensured your future is safe. Everything I built, everything I protected, all of it is yours. You will understand the details soon." Her hand shook as she turned the page. "There are people around you who are not what they pretend to be. Do not let Adam's family near any documents. They have always wanted control, not love. I have already signed the final version of my will with Mr. Thompson. He knows exactly what to do." Emily's stomach twisted. Her father had known. He had seen through them long before she did. Another flash of memory surfaced, a conversation she had forgotten until now. Emily at the kitchen table years ago, her father sipping tea as he watched her. "Remember this, Em," he said softly. "Greedy people reveal themselves during funerals. That's when masks fall off." She hadn't understood then. Now she did. Emily pressed the letter to her chest, tears slipping down her cheeks, not just from grief, but from clarity. Her father had been protecting her even in his last days. He'd been preparing her for the very moment she faced today. She wiped her tears and reached for her phone. She called the only person who could answer the questions burning inside her, the family lawyer. He picked up on the first ring. "Mr. Thompson," Emily whispered, I found a letter from my father. He said you would explain everything. He mentioned the will." There was a long pause on the other end, a heavy pause, the kind that held secrets. Then his voice, low and steady. "Emily, I'm glad you found that letter. Your father asked me to wait until after the funeral before we read anything official. You need to come tomorrow. There are things you don't know." Her pulse quickened. "What things?" He exhaled slowly as if choosing his words. "Things your father kept hidden, to protect you, the will, the changes he made, and another message he left with me, separate from the one you're holding." Emily's fingers tightened around the phone. Before she could ask more, he said softly, "And whatever happens tonight, do not let anyone near your father's documents or that briefcase in his room. Adam's family has already tried to ask questions they have no right to ask." The line went silent. Outside the room, a floorboard creaked, slow, deliberate, as if someone was standing just beyond the door. Emily's breath hitched. She turned her head toward the doorway, heart pounding, letter clutched in her hand. Someone knew more than they should, and tomorrow when the will was read, they would all find out exactly what Henry Carter had done. The morning exploded with noise before Emily even opened her eyes. Doors slammed. Voices clashed in the hallway. Footsteps stomped across the floor like a small storm circling outside her room. Emily shot upright, heart racing. For a second, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered. Her father's house. The same house where she had held his hand during his last breath. The same house where she'd found his letter. The same house where she'd stayed the night after the funeral, ignoring Adam's calls. "Emily!" Adam's voice thundered through the door. "Get dressed. We're leaving in an hour." Her breath caught. The force in his tone didn't sound like a husband speaking to his wife. It sounded like a man who believed he had everything under control. She opened the door slowly. Adam stood there already in a dark suit, hair slicked back, jaw clenched with impatience. Behind him hovered Margaret, his mother, arms crossed, chin raised, wearing a black dress she somehow made look judgmental. Beside them, to Emily's shock, was Sabrina, dressed more like she was going to brunch than a legal meeting. She held a small handbag and smiled sweetly. Too sweet, too confident, too comfortable in a place she didn't belong. Emily froze for a moment, not expecting to see Sabrina there at all. Adam noticed her expression. "She's coming with us," he said quickly. "She's been supporting me while you've been distracted." Distracted, taking care of her dying father. Emily said nothing. If she opened her mouth, she wasn't sure silence would survive. She thought of Mr. Thompson's voice from the night before. "Your father asked that everyone who could try to influence you be present when we read the will." It made sense now why Adam was so eager. He thought the reading was about him. Sabrina stepped forward, touching Adam's arm gently. "We're all here for you," she said, deliberately loud enough. "This meeting is stressful. You shouldn't go through it alone." Margaret nodded as if Sabrina were a daughter-in-law she approved of. "Exactly. Today is important. Your father left a mess, and we deserve to know how much of it affects us." Emily's breath tightened. Us? Her father owed them nothing. But she swallowed her anger. This was not the moment to fight with people who had already shown their greed in every way possible. She dressed silently, choosing a plain black blouse and slacks. The mirror reflected tired eyes, but there was also something new in them. Resolve. While getting ready, her mind replayed the night before. The letter she'd read, the line that said, "Everything I built. All of it is yours." And the calm, practical tone in which Mr. Thompson told her they would meet today. On his advice, she had also spoken briefly with another lawyer in his firm. The divorce papers now sitting in her bag were the quiet proof that she was done being blind. The drive to the lawyer's office was heavy with tension. No one spoke. Adam stared out the window, tapping his foot impatiently. Sabrina kept glancing at him, smiling softly whenever he met her eyes. Margaret inspected her nails, completely relaxed, like a queen waiting to claim her kingdom. Emily kept her gaze fixed on the road ahead. Her father's words echoed quietly inside her. Protect what I protected for you. When they arrived, the lawyer, Mr. Thompson, a calm man in his early 60s, greeted them at the door. He knew Emily well. He had served her father for over 30 years. Thank you for coming, he said softly to Emily first, with a respectful nod that made her feel seen, then paused when he saw Adam's family trailing behind her. And they are here as well? He asked carefully. Adam stepped forward before Emily could answer. Of course we're here. This concerns us too. We're family, and Sabrina is a close friend. Sabrina offered a polite smile, like she belonged. Mr. Thompson gave a polite but thin smile of his own. Mr. Carter specifically requested that the will be read with everyone present, he said. Every person who might attempt influence. Emily's breath steadied. Her father planned this. He knew exactly who would try to twist things when he was gone. They followed the lawyer into a conference room with a long wooden table. A thick folder sat at the center, along with a small stack of sealed envelopes. Adam sat at the head of the table without asking. Sabrina took the seat next to him, crossing her legs gracefully. Margaret sat on his other side. Emily quietly sat at the far end, directly across from the lawyer. She didn't need to sit close. She didn't need to be loud. Her father had already prepared the truth. Margaret leaned back in her chair, smug. Finally, we'll be rewarded for tolerating her father all these years. Sabrina smirked, tilting her head. Long overdue, if you ask me. Emily's jaw tightened, but she kept her face calm. She rested her hand lightly on her bag, feeling the folded weight of the divorce papers inside. Whether Adam inherited anything or not, he would not be staying in her life. Mr. Thompson opened the folder. The room stilled. His eyes moved slowly across the table until they reached Emily. There is something I must read first, he said. Adam leaned forward. Just get to the part about the inheritance. Mr. Thompson ignored him. He lifted a sealed document marked with Henry Carter's handwriting. Before anything else, he said, voice steady, Mr. Carter left a private message for his daughter to be read in front of all of you. Every person at the table stiffened. Adam's hand stopped tapping. Sabrina's smile froze. Margaret's eyes narrowed, and Emily felt her heartbeat surge. The lawyer broke the seal. Inside was a letter her father wrote with the same careful hand he used for everything important. As he unfolded it, Emily felt the air shift around her. Something was coming. Something her father wanted her to hear first. The room cracked open with tension the moment Mr. Thompson unfolded the letter. Not slow, not gentle, but sharp, like a blade drawn across the air. Emily's breath caught as the paper rustled. Adam's fingers tightened on the table edge. Sabrina straightened in her seat, suddenly alert. Margaret's lips pinched into a thin line. Mr. Thompson lifted his eyes, steady and unreadable. This, he said, is the message your father insisted be read before the will. He began to read. To my beloved daughter Emily. The room fell silent instantly. Margaret shifted uncomfortably. Sabrina crossed her arms. Adam stared straight ahead as if pretending the words weren't directed at his wife. You have been my greatest comfort, my peace, my pride. Everything I built was always meant for you. Emily blinked, tears burning the edges of her eyes. Even now, even gone, her father's voice felt like home. But the rest of the room was cracking. Mr. Thompson continued. I changed my will months ago after seeing things I hoped I'd never have to witness. Margaret's eyes snapped toward Adam. Adam stiffened. Sabrina swallowed hard. Emily didn't move. She didn't speak. Her heart pounded, but her face remained calm. She remembered her father's warnings, his shaken voice, his fear. Mr. Thompson read on. I saw the truth of the people around you. I saw the cruelty, the greed, The disrespect shown toward you, even while you cared for me with every part of your heart." Margaret bristled. "He misinterpreted." Mr. Thompson raised a hand. "Let me finish." He unfolded the last page. "Adam once spoke about me as if I were nothing but a walking wallet." A loud gasp slipped from someone in the back of the room, one of the junior staff standing by the door. Adam's face drained of color, his mouth open, but no words formed. Emily's heart tightened. A memory flashed. Her father lying weakly in bed one afternoon, weeks before he died. Voices drifting in from the hallway. Adam and Margaret speaking, thinking he was asleep. "You don't need to worry," Adam had said. "When he's gone, everything falls into our hands anyway. He's just a walking wallet." Emily hadn't heard those words then, but her father had, and it broke him. Back in the present, the lawyer continued. "After hearing that, I made my final decision." A long pause filled the room, thick, suffocating. Then with calm finality, Mr. Thompson read the last line. "Therefore, I leave my entire estate, every account, property, and company share that remains under my ownership, to my daughter, Emily Carter, and to her alone." The room fell into stunned silence. Emily didn't move. She sat perfectly still, breath trembling, hands clasped in her lap. Adam lurched to his feet. "This must be a mistake." Mr. Thompson didn't flinch. "There is no mistake. Mr. Carter transferred most assets into Emily's name long before his passing and confirmed all remaining rights in this final will. I updated the documents myself." Adam had never bothered to read the documents Henry sent or ask real questions. Until this moment, he had no idea his wife already legally owned almost everything he'd been counting on. Sabrina's smile vanished. Her hands gripped the armrests until her knuckles whitened. Margaret hissed, "He wouldn't do this. He knew we were family." Mr. Thompson calmly closed the letter. "Mr. Carter was very clear about who he trusted. He asked that you all be here so there would be no confusion and no rumors." Adam turned to Emily, fury and fear mixing in his eyes. "Did you know about this?" Emily met his gaze quietly. "No, but my father tried to warn me." A low whisper traveled across the room. "She owns everything?" Adam swallowed hard. "This changes nothing." Sabrina cut in sharply. "It changes everything." Her voice shook now. Adam shot her a glare, but she didn't stop. Her expression twisted, fear turning into anger. "So what now?" she demanded. "We just lose everything." Margaret slammed her hand on the table. "This can't be legal." "It is," Mr. Thompson replied. "The documents were signed months ago, witnessed, filed. Your son had plenty of time to ask questions he chose not to ask." Adam's breath turned quick and shallow. For the first time, he looked truly afraid. Emily watched him quietly, and in that moment, something inside her settled, something strong, something her father always believed she had. Mr. Thompson continued speaking about legal procedures, final expenses, transfer dates, but Emily didn't hear most of it. Her focus sharpened to one cold, steady line of thought. Adam used her. His family mocked her. Sabrina stood beside him like a woman claiming territory that wasn't hers. And her father, her only protector, had been right all along. Adam leaned closer, voice low enough only she could hear. "You know I need this," he whispered harshly. "Don't ruin my life." Emily didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her bag, her movements calm and deliberate. She pulled out a white envelope, thin, crisp, marked with her attorney's letterhead. The papers had been drafted overnight, using everything she'd finally allowed herself to admit. Then she slid it across the table toward Adam. His hand hovered above it, confused. "What is this?" he asked. Emily looked at him with quiet strength. "Read it." He opened it. His eyes widened. Divorce papers. Silence crashed over the room like a tidal wave. Sabrina's jaw dropped open. Margaret gasped sharply. Adam's fingers trembled. Emily stood slowly, and before leaving the room, she said softly, "I won't be used anymore." The room froze. But as she stepped into the hallway, she heard something. A quiet voice behind her. Mr. Thompson. Calm, certain. "Emily," he called gently, "there's still one more document your father left for you. We'll discuss it when you're ready." Something shifted in the air. A hint of an even bigger truth waiting just ahead. Emily barely made it 3 steps down the hallway before she heard the thunder of footsteps racing after her. "Emily, wait!" Adam's voice cracked with panic, something she hadn't heard from him in years. He grabbed her wrist, breathless, desperate, completely stripped of the confidence he showed minutes ago. But Emily didn't flinch. She turned slowly, her eyes calm, steady, almost cold. "We can fix this," Adam said, his voice shaking. "You don't have to do this. We can figure things out. I, I just need time." Emily looked at him with a softness that wasn't affection. It was pity. "Fix what, Adam?" she asked quietly. "Who were you planning to fix things with last night? Me or Sabrina?" His jaw dropped, his face drained of color, caught. For a moment, silence stretched between them, heavy, undeniable. Adam stuttered, I don't know what you think you heard." Emily stepped closer until her eyes were inches from his. Her voice was a whisper, but every word cut clean. "I heard enough." His grip loosened. Panic flickered across his face, raw and real, like a man watching the life he built crumble beneath him. Before he could speak again, a sharp ringtone echoed down the hallway. Sabrina. She appeared from the conference room doorway, phone already in her hand. Her expression was irritated, not devastated. She answered without glancing at Adam. Her voice softened instantly. "Oh, it's you. Hi." Emily watched Adam's face twist. Sabrina turned away slightly, lowering her voice. "But not enough. Yes, I told you I'm leaving that situation behind. No, he won't have anything soon. It's fine. Yes, I'm ready when you are." Adam's breath hitched. Sabrina hung up and turned toward them, straightening her blouse and forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well," she said, "I guess this is the perfect time to talk." Emily stayed still, but Adam stepped forward. "Sabrina, what was that?" She sighed dramatically. "Honestly, I can't keep pretending. You said we'd have access to money once your father-in-law passed. You said we'd be comfortable." Her eyes flicked toward Emily. "But now?" She shrugged. "You don't have anything. I have an offer from someone who actually can take care of me." Adam stared at her, stunned. "You're leaving?" he choked. Sabrina lifted her purse from the nearby table. "Adam, be serious. You're not useful to me anymore." The hallway went still. Emily didn't move. She didn't need to. Every truth she had quietly suspected was breaking open without her lifting a finger. Sabrina walked past Adam as if he were a stranger, heels clicking sharply, each step another wound. At the doorway, she paused just long enough to add, "Next time, don't promise things you can't deliver." And then she left. Adam collapsed back against the wall, hands on his head, breathing hard. He looked destroyed by greed, by betrayal, by the mess he created. Emily watched him, her face unreadable. This was not victory. This was truth. Margaret's voice shattered the silence. "Adam, what have you done?" She stormed down the hallway, eyes blazing, her elegant posture replaced with fury. "You idiot," she hissed. "You let everything slip through your fingers. This should have been ours, everything. We tolerated her father for years because we thought—" Emily stared at her. Margaret froze. The words hung in the air like poison. "We tolerated her father." The truth, the greed, the arrogance. It was all out now, without Emily pushing for a single confession. Margaret grabbed Adam's arm, shaking him. "Fix this! Fix it!" Adam looked broken, eyes red, voice cracked. "I tried, but she won't help us." Margaret turned to Emily with sudden desperation. "Emily, please, think of the family." Emily's voice cut through her pleading. "I did, for years," Margaret faltered. Before the argument could continue, Mr. Thompson approached from the conference room. Calm, steady. "Mr. Carter," he said to Adam, "your father-in-law made very clear legal arrangements before his passing." Adam stood up straighter, fire returning to his eyes. "I still have rights." Mr. Thompson's expression didn't change. "No," he said gently but firmly. "You have no legal claim to Mr. Carter's estate. Everything was transferred to Emily lawfully, and the will confirms it." The hallway fell silent. Adam stared, helpless, shaking, disbelieving. Emily stepped back, her breath slow, steady. Mr. Thompson turned to her. For now, he said quietly, let's focus on settling your father's affairs. The divorce and any further action will be handled in court. Emily nodded. Her world was shifting, but for the first time, it was shifting in her favor. Later, as she waited near the office entrance for a taxi, her mind drifted back to her father's room, the briefcase he kept, the way he had once rested his hand on it and said, if anything ever happens to me, this holds the rest. Something else was coming, something not just about money, but about what her father wanted her life to look like after all of this. And for the first time, Emily felt ready to hear it. The judge's gavel slammed down so hard the sound shot through the courtroom like a gun going off. Order! Everyone in the room jumped except Emily. She didn't flinch. She sat perfectly still at her table, hands folded, eyes calm, waiting for the final blow of truth. Weeks had passed since the will reading. Adam had refused to accept the outcome quietly. He challenged parts of the will, tried to delay the asset transfers, and dragged the divorce into court, still hoping he could claw something back. Now here they were. Adam, sitting at the opposite table, looked nothing like the proud man he once pretended to be. His suit was wrinkled, his face pale, his hands trembling. Margaret sat behind him with a frozen expression of disbelief. Their world was collapsing, and the courtroom felt like the only place left where the truth still mattered. Mr. Thompson, her father's lawyer, stood tall and ready beside Emily's divorce attorney. He held a thick binder in his hands, the one containing every piece of proof that needed to be shown. The judge glanced between them. We will now hear the supporting evidence regarding the divorce filing and financial claims. Adam swallowed hard. Your Honor, she's twisting everything. The judge raised a hand. You will speak when spoken to. Silence dropped again. Mr. Thompson opened the binder. Your Honor, he began, what you will see today are not accusations. They are facts documented carefully by Mr. Henry Carter himself, along with the evidence gathered in the past months. He placed several photographs on the evidence screen. A hush swept through the room. Photos of Adam with Sabrina, hands intertwined, kisses exchanged, late-night meetings in parking lots, dates stamped in the corners, photographs taken well before Henry passed away, while Emily was busy taking care of her sick father. Adam's mouth fell open. Those were taken out of context. Mr. Thompson didn't look at him. He turned the page. Next came printed messages, text exchanges between Adam and Sabrina, plans, confessions. Jokes about Emily being too naive to suspect anything. Wishes for Henry to hurry up and go so the money situation would finally improve. The courtroom gasped. Adam buried his face in his hands. Emily sat still, each revelation painfully familiar and yet strangely distant, like she was watching the life she once lived unravel from the outside. Mr. Thompson continued. This letter, he said, lifting a single sheet, was written by Mr. Carter weeks before his passing. He read aloud. I am deeply concerned for my daughter's safety and future. Her husband has shown disregard for her well-being and speaks of me as if I were nothing more than a wallet. I fear what he will try to take from her when I am gone. Whispers spread through the room. Margaret glared at Adam, fury rising in her eyes. The judge leaned forward. Is the testimony hand-signed and verified? Yes, Your Honor. And does the financial documentation confirm Mr. Carter's assets belong solely to Emily Carter prior to his passing? Mr. Thompson handed the judge a stack of financial records. Yes, every property, every account, every investment, everything was in Emily's name before Mr. Carter died. The will confirmed any residual rights and excluded Mr. Adam Carter entirely. The judge reviewed the papers, his brows lifting with surprise. So Adam Carter, the judge said slowly, had no legal claim to any portion of the estate? Correct. Adam's breath broke in a small, strangled sound. His lawyer tried to speak, but the judge gave a firm nod, the kind that meant finality. Then the court recognizes the will and financial documentation as valid. The estate belongs entirely to Emily Carter. Emily closed her eyes for a moment. Just a moment, long enough to feel her father's presence, long enough to breathe in the justice he'd fought quietly to give her. But the judge wasn't finished. As for the divorce proceedings, he said, lifting the file, based on the overwhelming evidence of infidelity, manipulation, and intent to exploit Mrs. Carter for financial gain? He stamped the papers with a firm, echoing thud. The divorce is hereby granted. A sound escaped Adam, half sob, half plea. Emily opened her eyes. Everything was finally over. Mr. Thompson placed a gentle hand on her shoulder before stepping back. She nodded in gratitude, her heart steady now. She had stood through grief, betrayal, humiliation, and survived. People in the room whispered, "She didn't deserve that. He only wanted money. Good for her." Public truth, public justice. Her father would have been proud. Emily stood, collecting her bag calmly. She walked toward the exit with quiet grace. But before she reached the door, she heard frantic footsteps behind her. "Emily!" She stopped. Adam rushed toward her, breathing hard, tears streaking down his face. "Emily, please!" he begged, voice breaking. "Please don't leave me like this. I have nothing left." She turned slowly, her expression unreadable. His eyes were desperate, wild, searching for the woman he once controlled. But the woman standing before him now was not the same. Not broken, not afraid, not his. Emily stepped forward, her voice soft but unshakable. "You chose this." Adam reached for her arm, but before he could touch her, a firm hand grabbed his wrist. "Mr. Thompson." "Step back," the lawyer said quietly. "You have no rights here. The court has decided." Adam's eyes widened with dread, and from the corner of the room a shadow moved, someone approaching with a document in hand. A new envelope sealed with a crest Emily recognized too well. Her father's company crest. A final truth waited. Something her father had left behind that she hadn't seen yet. The courthouse doors slammed open behind her with a force that made everyone nearby turn. But Emily didn't. She didn't need to look back. She didn't need to see the chaos she left behind. She stepped out into the sunlight, letting the warmth hit her full on the face like a long-awaited breath after years underwater. For the first time in months, maybe years, the world felt still. Her hands, which had been shaking through funerals, confrontations, lies, and courtroom battles, finally relaxed at her sides. Her heartbeat softened. Her shoulders dropped from the weight they carried. She stood there on the courthouse steps, 32 years old, freshly divorced, legally protected, and finally free. Behind her, muffled voices echoed through the thick courthouse doors, angry ones, panicked ones, voices that used to control her, belittle her, shame her. Not anymore. Emily closed her eyes, and in the quiet of her mind, a memory rose, soft, warm, and steady, her father's voice. "Strength isn't loud, Emily. It's quiet, steady, and undeniable." Her lips curled into the smallest smile. He had been right. She didn't need shouting. She didn't need revenge through cruelty. She didn't need to win by tearing others apart. She won by standing. She won by surviving. She won by listening to his final gift, the truth. She opened her eyes again. Across the courthouse window, Adam appeared, pale, hollow, broken. He stood behind the glass like a man trapped in a cage of his own making. He had nothing now. No money, no family who believed in him, no mistress to run to, and no power over her. Margaret wasn't with him. She had stormed out earlier, screaming at him for ruining everything. Sabrina had disappeared long before the judge stamped the divorce papers, leaving Adam mid-sentence without a second glance. He was alone, completely. His eyes found Emily through the glass. He lifted a hand, not in anger this time, but in pleading. Emily didn't move. He mouthed something. Please. Another plea. One he should have made years ago, when she was still fighting for their marriage, still trying to keep them together, still believing in him. But now, she simply watched him in silence. She had already given him enough. Emily turned away, her hair catching the sunlight like a soft halo. Her steps were slow, steady, confident, every one of them a goodbye to the girl who once lived for someone else's approval. Halfway down the steps, a gentle breeze brushed across her face, carrying with it a familiar warmth, almost like a hand she once held. Her father's voice whispered through her memory, "My daughter, never let cruelty shrink your heart. You were always meant for more." Emily breathed in deeply. Her father was gone. Her marriage was gone. Her fear was gone, but she was still here, stronger, clearer, unshakable. She reached the bottom step and paused. Something inside her shifted. Not fear, not sadness, but acceptance. A new chapter waited, a life her father built for her with love, protection, and trust. Emily walked forward without looking back. Behind her, the courthouse door creaked open again. A familiar voice, Mr. Thompson's, called out softly, "Emily, when you're ready, there's one more thing your father left for you. It arrived today, the documents with his company's crest. It's about your future, not your past." Her steps slowed. One more thing. She turned her head slightly, not enough to look back, just enough to let the possibility sink in. Her story wasn't done yet. Something else waited. Something her father had planned, long before anyone realized it. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.